For my recipe today, I'm going to be making some blondies. Now I think most of the time needed for this recipe is actually preparing all of the ingredients, because I've needed to use 2 different types of sugar according to the recipe, some plain flour, some baking powder, some egg, some vanilla essence and obviously some white chocolate. I'm going to decorate mine with pecan nuts. The recipe starts then by melting some butter. Now I decided to put mine into a small bowl and to cover it and to put it in the microwave. You can of course do it in a saucepan on the hob. I'm just going to leave that now just to cool for a few minutes whilst I prepare the chocolate. The chocolate then needs to be cut into small squares. Now it's actually double the amount of this, I've already prepared half of it, and I'm simply going to cut each square into 4. So I'm going to start by cutting it down the centre with a sharp knife and then go across each time like so, and then just across again so that it goes into squares. You actually need a bigger knife. It's much easier with a bigger knife than it is with a smaller knife. You can actually press it down a little bit more with your hand. Okay, that's my chocolate done then, so I'm going to add that to the bit that I did earlier. Put those out of the way. The next stage then is to get together my dry ingredients. So, as I say, I've got 2 different sorts of sugar. I'm going to add some soft brown sugar and a little bit of demerara sugar, that's the crunchy one, just for a little bit of added texture. If you haven't got both, don't worry, just use one of them, or indeed use caster sugar, it doesn't matter. Next ingredient is some plain flour, so I'm going to tip that in. Half a teaspoon of baking powder. So if you haven't got plain flour and baking powder, you could of course use self-raising flour. So I'm just going to pop that in. Then I need quarter of a teaspoon of salt. Just half fill that one. Okay. I actually used unsalted butter for mine. If you're using salted butter, you probably don't need to have any additional salt. I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla essence. And again, I'm going to add about half a teaspoon. Again, if you haven't got it, do not worry. And then my final ingredients are simply going to be to add the egg and to add the butter. So I've got my egg. I'm just going to use a wooden spoon now just to break that up slightly in the bowl. And then I'm going to tip that into the flour mixture along with the melted butter. And I'm going to give those a good stir together. Once it's starting to go together, I'm going to add into it my chocolate that I prepared earlier. If you wanted to, of course, you could put some normal milk chocolate in to give a bit more colour. But I'm going to stick with the original recipe. So there's my white chocolate chunks, and they go. That's it mixed up, and then I'm going to put it into the same tin as I used when I made my flapjack. In fact, it's an identical one, so be careful as you go when you pour it in, and you can reuse these foil dishes. And I've just got it standing in a baking tray just to give it a little bit more stability. So all of that goes in. I just need to scrape out my bowl. And then in a moment I'm going to decorate it with the pecan nuts. It's quite a sticky mixture. Okay, so press it down so it goes into the sides of the tin. And hopefully the chocolate's been evenly spread so that everybody will get a similar amount when they have their piece. And then, as I say, I'm going to use the pecan nuts. So I know that I can have 5 side by side along here, and that then gives me, when I come to cut it, it gives me the 10 pieces. So I'll just pop those on. and then it's going to go into the oven. I'm going to start it, it's quite a small tin, so I'm going to start it with about 15 minutes in the oven, then I'm going to have a look at it. So there it is, 15 minutes in the oven, and I've got it set to 190. The brownies have now had the 15 minutes, so they look like they've browned reasonably well, although I'm going to turn them around when they go back into the oven. What I need to do really now is just to see what the consistency is like, and the easiest way to do that is actually just to get a knife and just to cut through a little bit, because at the end of the day I'm going to have to cut these into pieces anyway, so there's no harm in cutting it down the centre. Now I know that lots of people like their brownies soft and squishy, but actually what I've got is raw cake mixture. So I'm therefore going to put that back into the oven probably for about another 10 minutes.